This is big time right here. On Wednesday, October 19th, on the SFL RedZone. I got to get used to saying that. Sounds good. We have the Houston Hyenas. The Hot Hyenas at that. They could easily have won their last 8. If you look at their schedule, you see what I'm talking about. The Hot Hyenas coming into the home of the Maulers, Minneapolis. Who you got, Doug?
Well, the one thing I like about this game is this is T. Cabell and this is Farnsworth Bentley, the number 1 and number 2 sack guys in the league. They have combined for 29 and a half sacks on the year, if you can believe that. Then Frankie Capone has another 6.5 sacks, and he's 6th in the sacks in the league. He comes in there. So the quarterbacks are going to get hit, and they're going to get hit often, in my opinion. I think guys are going to get knocked around like crazy. Unfortunately, we've seen Mac Wavy already get hurt this season. So is he vulnerable to injury? We shall see. Total defense-wise in this game, both teams give up over 400 yards a game. Houston's giving up 404. Minneapolis is giving up 434.5. 37 touchdowns allowed, 42 touchdowns allowed. Both teams are averaging almost 7 yards per play allowed in a game. You can run on these teams. You can throw on these teams. Both teams have looked good recently. Both teams have been playing well recently. So, to me, it comes down to the offense. Which offense is going to want to show up? And when you really look at the offensive numbers, like the total offense in the league, they're ranked 4th and 5th. They're separated by less than 12 yards. So it's like, okay, you really can't pick there. But here's the thing. Houston's way more balanced. They will throw the ball. They will run the ball. Minneapolis will throw the ball, and they will also throw the ball again. They only run very seldom. They are under 500 yards rushing. There's only 2 teams in the league that are under 500 yards rushing. And Minneapolis with 477 and Sioux Falls with 307. And both teams are playing favorable to the swing. So, in the words of our commissioner, that's their running game. So the big fella, if they throw him the ball and he plays like he did against L.A., Houston's in trouble. He was breaking every damn tackle he could get, running over people, just was a monster. Or he could play like he's done in other games. As soon as he gets blown on, he falls down. So it all depends on which version of the big fella wants to show up, and that being Doug Boas, me. Do I feel like running people over that night, or do I feel like just falling down? To me, that's the key of this whole game. That is the key to this whole game for Minneapolis, and the key to the whole game for Houston is keeping their balance, because that's going to be hard to prepare for. It's a clear, in a sense, coin flip type game, and I can't even say this, if it's a playoff game, so such and such a team comes into playoffs and he's more of a whatever. You don't get that with either one of these teams. The Maulers have a championship. Houston has been to the championship and lost. Houston backpedaled their ass into the playoffs last season in horrible fashion, and then they made it count and got to the championship game. They won when it mattered the most, which was an amazing feat to see. So I'm going to pick the Maulers just because it's T-Pat's last hurrah. That's the only reason.
Okay. I hear you. I don't agree with you, but I hear you. Last week, Houston had to go and face the Renegades for boasting the league's second-best run D. And I said, if Houston can play all 60 minutes, that there will be a blackout in OKC. And that's exactly what happened. Darnell Black is in my opinion, in this humble man's opinion, Darnell Black is easily the best running back in this league, and he's he's a problem. Corky has shown that since he's jumped on, that they've slowly but surely been making changes to their defense and how they play and how they attack and how they'll decide to stop teams from doing what they like to do and force them into things they don't like doing. Where am I going with this? We all know Minneapolis loves to throw the big balls in the flat. But we also know that Sioux Falls like to do that. Same with Beasley. Last time they ran to a team that likes to throw that likes to use those concepts,
right.
They practically shut it down and forced that team to go elsewhere, and that team wasn't prepared nor comfortable to do so. Can Minneapolis learn from another team's mistakes and not have to rely on that concept as much and attack different parts of the field?
And that's why that's another reason why I'll take T-Pat, because I think if anyone's going to learn, it'd be him. And I'm going to defer this show to you. If you can run the show for me for about 2 to 3 minutes on your own. The smoke alarm's going off. No, it's good?
Go.
Okay, never mind. I don't have to do that. They took care of it. I'm good to go. All right.
Live radio, folks. You got to love it. Like I was saying, though.
Especially when we're unprofessional live radio.
So, as I was saying, I was about to say, T-Pat's been around this game for a long time. And I could see him making the necessary adjustments to attack different parts of the field. But the different parts of the field he has to attack are running into Houston's strength. That's the thing. And as always, that one generic corner bothers me to the high heavens on Minneapolis. It's just, Kimokaleka will make you pay again if you're not sound with the football. But Scrabble has been holding it down. The quarterback of Houston's been holding out these past weeks. He hasn't been turning the ball over, and just like that, if he doesn't turn the ball over, gives Darnell Black a chance to win the game for him instead of him trying to find a way to lose the game.
Right.
They're in the gravy.
I'll give you this number. You mentioned the one corner from Minneapolis, and this was a stat I found very interesting. That one corner from Minneapolis did stand out to me. I was like, ooh, But did you know Minneapolis and Houston are ranked 15th and 16th in the league against the pass, and it's Minneapolis that is in 16th slot. I'm sorry, Houston. Houston's in 16th against the pass. Minneapolis is better against the pass. It's only by about 4 or 5 yards. But both teams give up 315 to 320 yards passing. And I was like, wait a minute, one corner. They don't have the one corner. To me, that stood out as a little bit of a stat. And then, like I said, both these teams, which I find this shocking, both these teams are the best in the league, in my opinion, of getting pressure on the quarterback. So you would think it would help the secondaries out. But the secondaries are still last and next to last in pass yards allowed, despite all that pressure up front.
Yes, but here's the caveat to that stat. When did Corky jump aboard to take full control of the defense? Because the issue Houston was having early in the season, they were scoring with the best of them. They just couldn't stop anybody else from scoring themselves. And since Corky came on board and started, messing around with the defense, trying to figure what they're good at, what they're not good at, the results have been plain as day. As you could, like, if you look at the schedule, you see them allowing 50, 40, 40, and then all of a sudden the scores that they allow starting to go down. They allow 7, they allow 14, they allow 17. So though that is a great stat, the one you pull out, it could be somewhat misleading because it doesn't fully represent how they've been playing lately.
Right. And I want to point this out because this is another, how you make that mention. This is another thing I want to mention as far as that goes, and this is something where I really break down numbers. When you look at those games, of those 3 games where they gave up 7, 14, 17, the only one game that impresses me was Sioux Falls. They gave up 14 points to Sioux Falls, which Sioux Falls, when you go look, is the 4th scoring team in the league. Okay? The other 2 teams were Oklahoma City and Orlando, who were both outside of the top 10. So they're not traditionally high-scoring offenses. So if you figure out the defense slightly, and they're not great in scoring points traditionally, you're going to have that type of score. But the Sioux Falls game was an absolute wow. You know, that game alone can make you step back and be like, okay, what's my man doing? What's my man doing? And even though Minneapolis is sitting where they're at 6-5, we all know that Minneapolis is a high-scoring machine, even though they're only ranked 7th in the league in scoring this year. But they're always a threat of putting up points at any time. They can score in one play. They're one of those few teams who can score every game, every play, all day in one shot, no matter what the play is. It can be a dive, and they're a threat to score for some reason. So, to me, as you said, those numbers can be misleading because of what they've done recently, and those recently numbers can be misleading based on the teams that they had played outside of Sioux Falls. And that's no disrespect to the other two teams, but you know, that's how I break things down. When I break things down, I break them down from every freaking angle, and that's why this game is one of the most appealing games on the schedule this week, and it's going to be fun.
Yes, it is. And, if you hadn't noticed, I picked Houston. By the way, Houston, DR Sim, you owe me a big play. I said you had a big play and you didn't come through. I need you to come through with a big play this week.